Hey guys, how's it going? How are we doing? I hope that you're all relaxed, chilling out. I've even got my granddad slippers on and I want to embrace that inner granddad moment because I want to begin this afternoon or this morning or whenever you're watching this with a sense of reminiscing. And I wonder, have you ever set yourself a stupid goal? Because I know that I have. And I remember a few years ago, I ran my very first half marathon and I did all right. I probably should have trained a little bit more, but I kind of just carried on and I got severe cramp with the last 2 miles and I just about did it in just over 2 hours. And I was pleased with myself. It was my first attempt. I completed it, I did it. And the following year, I hadn't really thought about running too much. And with a month to go, I decided that I'm going to do the exact same race. Do my half marathon and I'll do my training this month. And I start my training, I do a couple of runs, get out and feeling okay. And the aim then was to do it in sub 2 hours. So do it on under 2 hours to better the year that I did before. And the reason why this became a stupid goal was because my preparation was within that month. You see, the year before when I started to decide that I was going to run the half marathon for the first time, I ran for about 3 or 4 months prior, doing a couple of runs a week. This time I decided to do 2 or 3 runs a week for a month in preparation for it. And I kind of get there, I remember getting there, I'd had only a banana and I ran 6 miles and then was like, I really need the toilet. Now, there are toilets when you're doing a marathon and you're doing a run properly, so that's okay. So I get in, I go to this cubicle, go for the toilet, I get out and then I'm like, oh, do you know what, I've lost a bit of time, I need to quicken up the pace, which wasn't a good idea. So I start trying to run that a little bit faster to try and get it under this 2 hours. And I hit the 8 mile mark, and half marathon's 13 miles, so I'm 5 miles away. And I hit this 8 mile mark and I'm starting to get cramp in my right leg. So I'm like, oh no. So I'm trying to just continue, try not to think about it, get to the 9th mile and now I've got cramp in both legs and I'm having to stretch. But as I'm stretching, I know that I'm losing time. So then I'm trying to go a little bit quicker, but my legs are getting a little bit heavier. It becomes even more difficult. Now, with only a couple of miles left to run, I'm stretching every 200-300 yards and now I'm sitting there getting fed up. I'm about 2 miles away from now where I need to be. My legs are in bits. The 2 hour mark looks like it's about to leave me. And I'm like, what am I doing? All I want to do is just be at home and get in the bath. My legs are killing. And the issue is that I'm getting a lift with my mate who's probably already at the finish line and I'm not quite there. And that's my only way of getting home. So I've got to finish this race regardless. And I get back just about over the finish line and I did it in 2 hours, 8 minutes. It was actually worse than the year before and I felt rubbish. And looking back, I know that a lot of it had to do with this goal being stupid because my preparation wasn't good enough. You see, the goal in itself to run a half marathon under 2 hours was actually quite a good goal, but my downfall was the time frame that I was looking to do it. Was it realistic? Probably not. But I've learned something from that experience. And I learned to never give up. And I'm sure you've had to learn that as well over time, and especially during these past few months. I'm sure you found it with your friends and your family, in school and different activities that you can't give up. Maybe you've fallen out with a friend recently, but you know that the friendship you can't give up on. Or you've argued with your brother and sister and there's a sense somewhere you know that you're going to have to see them later on that day. So you've got to stick and you can't give up in that relationship. Maybe you've lied to your parents and you know that you can't give up when you've lied and you actually got to turn around and tell the truth. Or maybe you're struggling with schoolwork and you're like, I can't give up on that. You see, life can be full of challenges, but a lot of it then comes down to how do we respond. And over the past few weeks, we've been reading this chapter and we've been looking at this story about Peter walking on water. And it's this incredible miracle that Peter was involved in. And we see Jesus out on the scene. He calls out to him and he said, "If it's you, Jesus, tell me to come." And Jesus says, "Come." And as he starts walking on the water, each step, he steps on the sea, and it's like it's dry ground. And it's just this incredible moment. But events quickly change and Peter begins to sink. And in Matthew chapter 14, verses 30 and 31, it says this: "But when he saw the wind was boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, 'Lord, save me.' And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and called him and said to him, 'O you of little faith, why did you doubt?'" Like, it started great. He was walking on water, but it didn't all go to plan. And it's here that we read that famous line from Jesus, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And the truth is, I don't understand why Peter was doubting. Like he'd taken a few steps already. He'd already seen the water become solid underneath his feet. Why did he need to doubt? Why did he doubt and then begin to sink? Like, I think if we read this passage today and we look at it, I don't take it as the perspective that Jesus being really harsh on Peter. I actually look at and think of it from a different perspective. I think it's an encouragement to Peter to say, do you know, you can continue to grow. Look where you've been. Look what happened. Where were you? You were walking on water. Like, why did you stop believing that you could do it when you were already doing it? It's like last week when we said we're called and our goal is to grow. And we see in this moment from that first week where we spoke about how the impossible was made possible with Jesus. So what happens next? What happens next with Peter? In a couple of chapters' time, in chapter 16, Peter identifies Jesus as the Christ and the Son of God, the person who all the Jewish people are waiting for and who will come to save them. And in that chapter 16, Jesus responds to Peter in verse 18, and he says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it." You see, once Jesus ascended and left the apostles to build the church, Peter was a key figure in it. And here we see what we can think is as a failed attempt from Peter. But even in our failed attempts, we should never give up. When life is difficult, we shouldn't give up. We need to learn to forgive others and forgive ourselves. We need to remember to just continuing to turn up even when it's difficult at first. We need to understand that not everything in life is easy, but in the midst of the hard work, it can still be worth it. And these things are true about our faith just as much as they're true about relationships and schoolwork and football and dance. You see, in Philippians chapter 3, verses 14, Paul says these words, and he says, "I press towards the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ." It says, I press. We move onwards, whatever the circumstances or the struggles we're facing. I press on. Paul didn't write these words not experiencing difficulty. In fact, in the Bible we read that he was bitten by a poisonous or venomous snake. He was shipwrecked. He was beaten. He was stoned. He definitely didn't have it easy, but he chose to press on. He chose to never give up. So that goal that I shared earlier with the half marathon, I'm trying to run it under 2 hours. 2 years ago, I made the decision that I was going to attempt that goal again. And I prepared much better. I put in the hard work. I prepared for over 4 months to get there. And I ran it in an hour and 47 minutes. And the big difference, I just didn't give up. I gave myself more time to prepare, and I knew I could learn from the previous experiences. So for you going into this next week, your next step with this might be reaching out to friends from church you've not spoken to for a while. For others, it might be persevering with something that has been difficult right now and praying to God about it. Well, maybe asking friends or family to pray with you too. And for some, it might be continuing to ask questions about faith and what you know and what you don't know about it, but asking to those people around you, what does it actually look like to have a relationship with Jesus, and pressing on, asking those questions, not giving up until you're satisfied. Whatever your next step is, whatever this week looks like, I want to encourage you to press on, as our goal is to never give up.